Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I want to share with you some great news. I am now on the design team for Lost Coast Design rubber stamps. They have beautiful stamps. I'm telling you, I might as well just make myself a shirt that says "Will Work for Stamps" because I love it. It's so much fun. And when I saw their beautiful stamps at the Heirloom Rubber Stamp Show a few months ago, last month actually, I just fell in love with them. And when Linda said I could be on her design team, I just jumped at the chance. I said, send me some stamps, I'll send you some cards. Here is the first card I'm going to send out. And I thought, you know, I want to make a couple of these because it would be really handy to have this on hand for a thank you note. And I thought, well, if I'm making two, why don't I do a video and show you how I did it, because I got a lot of different techniques here, and I think it'd be really fun to see some of the techniques that I used, and maybe you'll want to try them too. So let's take a look. The first tip I want to share with you today is to kind of think outside the box when you're looking to do titles and whatnot on your cards. Here I just wrote the word thanks on a little banner, and I don't have a die cut for a banner. I mean, I could plug in my computer and my die cutter and create one, or download one from the internet, but I remembered that I had this stencil book that I picked up on the bargain table at Borders many years ago, and it had a cute little banner in it. If you can see that banner right there. These are just stencils, and you probably have some on hand already, so you don't need to go out and invest in a die cutting system or buy expensive dies when you want to shape. You can often just use clip art and trace it, or find a stencil that you already have at home. And that's what I did here. I traced that onto some pink paper, and I'm just going to use my calligraphy pen to write the word thanks. And I apologize I have to do this upside down for you because I've got to do it right side up for me. Somebody pointed out that I forgot to put the letter H in my last calligraphy video. I had no idea. But, so, you know, I have to at least have it right set up, and even that's, you know, dodgy whether I'll spell something or write something right. So I'm just using my pen to write the word thanks. Remember, as long as you start your letters at the top, and you leave enough space between your letters, and you just try to keep them all the same slant, they'll look just great. And I'm going to set that aside to dry, and then we'll trim it out and we'll go from there. But we don't need that to the end, but that ink does take a little bit of time to dry, so we're just going to set that aside for now. And put my pen aside and cap up my ink so I don't spill it, because I'm likely to do that over my brand new sundress that I just bought. And I got it for $5 at Martin's. I'm so excited. Okay, anyway, on with the show. So I've got this just plain piece of cardstock. I think it's Staples brand. And it's trimmed to a regular A4 size, 5.5 inches by 4 1/4. And I've got this beautiful background that I actually bought at the stamp show, Lost Coast Designs. And I'm going to ink that up with clear embossing ink. And I'm going to use my really big ink pad because it'll be easier to cover it all. So I'm just tappa. And I really love these rounded blocks. This is a mega mount. I have another stamp that I'm going to use today on a rock block. These rounded mounts make it really easy to stamp detailed images, and a lot of these stamps from Lost Coast Designs are beautiful vintage detailed images. Some look like they could be from photographs, and you really need to make sure that that all of the stamp is making contact with the paper when you have something as detailed as this. You know, your big flourishes and line stamps, it's a lot easier to stamp them. You have to make sure when you have something detailed that you are getting all the paper. Now, since this is clear ink, I really have to kind of tip it to see how much more I need to cover on here. If I overlap a bit, it's not the end of the world. It's just a background, so don't worry about it too much. And then I keep my clear embossing powder in a Tupperware dish, one of those, you know, cheapo generic Tupperwares that they sell at the grocery store that are like disposable, but these are great for like your everyday colors of embossing powder that you use a lot, like your clear or maybe your white. Now I'm going to skip across the other side of my room, and I'm going to emboss this, and I'll be right back. Okay, I heat embossed my image, which basically means I heated it up with a heat gun to melt the embossing powder, and now I want to color this background. And what we're going to have here is a resist, and what I'm doing is taking a few colors of dye-based ink. I'm using this Victorian Velvet, which is just kind of like a grungy pink. It's not really very bright. And I'm going to use a little bit of Vintage Photo. I told you, I think it was a couple months ago, I invested in the Tim Holtz distress ink pads because they were on sale for like $2.25 a pad at Joann. Now I'm going to spray this with, this is another moldy oldie. It is some old walnut ink. Remember that? That was all the rage like 10 years ago. And I'm just going to press my paper in it and kind of rub it around a bit. It doesn't matter if the back gets messy. Oh, it just looks so pretty. See that? It's looking so pretty there. I just want to soak up as much of that as I can. Alright, and then maybe just give it a little spritz, and I'll use my fingers just to spread it around a little bit. I think I want a little bit more pink, so I'm just going to put it on a little clear spot on my mat so I don't contaminate my ink pad, and press it right in there because I like pink. I like this because when you're doing kind of these steampunk type cards, you can use the steampunk elements and stamps to get kind of a edgy look to it, but you can still keep it feminine with the colors that you choose. Alright, now we're going to let that dry, and I'm going to wipe up my mat with a towel that I happen to actually have within reach. Lucky for me. That's a new one. Didn't have to run across the room. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to do a little paper piecing. And I'm going to stamp this with staz-on ink onto this paper. And normally I don't like staz-on ink, it's not my favorite, but I'm going to have to use that on the background, otherwise it won't stick over my resist. So rather than have, you know, 5 ink pads out here, I'm just going to use the same one because it'll work just fine. And I will say I just re-inked my staz-on. I have to re-ink it all the time. I don't know if that's typical or if it's just me. There. Okay, we have a nice impression there, and I'm going to cut out the parts of this that are kind of not see-through. I'm going to cut out the bustier area here, the kind of corset area, and I'm going to cut out the trim on the bottom of the dress. My background still isn't dry, so while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to cut out the thanks that we just wrote earlier in the video, because that's dry now. And I am just going to cut it out like this. I am going to just cut around the outlines, but I'm going to leave it connected so that I have a place to kind of fold it back. And we're going to ink up the little tail area just to make it a little more three-dimensional. And when we glue it down, we're just going to glue it by the ends that fold back, and then it will kind of have a little bit of a pop-upness to it. It'll look very pretty. And you know, I think that as long as you use your best handwriting and you use your calligraphy pen, it will turn out really nice. Alright, I'm going to ink up the edges using a little ink applicator and my pink ink. And then just kind of get the edges there a little bit. And then I'll fold it back on the little marks that I drew. I could score it first, but really I don't need to. I scored it on the other one, but this folds really easily. So I'm going to fold it back, and that's how I'll adhere it. Just like so. Okay, I cheated a little bit, and I went and dried this with a heat gun just to make sure it was fully dry before I went on. And I'm going to use staz-on again to ink up my dress form stamp. And I'm going to stamp it right on the background. And I'm using staz-on so that it will actually stick to the embossing. Okay. Well, it stuck pretty good. Yeah, I could see that well enough, I suppose. And I'm going to use colored pencils to color in the neck area of the dress form, as well as the skirt area under the bodice. And I'm going to press really hard so that I can really make the colors show up, because it's going to be hard to see on top of the embossing and the texture and the ink that we have in the background. And I'm using 3 different shades of colored pencil. I'm using kind of a flesh color, a brown, and like a really light yellow. And it's not really going to show up too well right now, but I think once we get everything paper pieced together, it will. I'm just using a little bit of glue. I'm going to glue this down. We're gluing the cutout parts on top of the stamped area. And this is one of the reasons I don't like staz-on pads. They never really feel that juicy to me, and even though I just re-inked this before I shot this video, I still had the ink skip in places, so I really only use staz-on when I absolutely have to. Now I'm going to go ahead with my marker, and I'm going to outline the kind of cagey part of the dress form. It's really important I do this in this one because it's hard to see where it's stamped because the ink pad skipped on me a little bit, but I'm all about going on with the show, so we're just going to keep on trucking with this. And this is a water-based marker, and it will resist on the embossing, so it's not going to show up over the embossing. If I use like a Copic marker, that would show up over the embossing, but I kind of wanted that to keep on showing through. And I'm just going to go on a little bit of this kind of cagey part here over the corset area. And it just kind of helps define it. And now I kind of want the corset itself to have a little bit more color to it. So I'm going to grab a pink marker and just add some like kind of darker pink to the details here. And I'm not being too particular about it, I'm just kind of throwing in the color. And I think while I have this brown marker handy, I'm also going to go over the bottom here and see if I can get any more to stick over the embossing. Now, one of my secret weapons is to use clear nail polish, clear glitter nail polish, to add a little bling onto my cards, and I like it because it dries really quick. I'm always smearing glitter glue and stickles whenever I try to use it. But this stuff dries so quick and so shiny, and if you do get out of the lines, it doesn't really show that much. So I just love it. I stock up on this at the dollar store. This is just clear glitter nail polish, and if I want a little extra bling like I do here while it's still wet, I can sprinkle in some pink glitter. And this is, I like this glitter by Making Memories. I've had it for years. I don't even know if they make it anymore, because I can shake it and only a little bit comes out, and it's got just like a little, I don't know if you can see that on the video, it's just got like a little round tip about the size of 1/8 of an inch on the top, and it doesn't let that much out, so I don't even have to worry about pouring it back in, because pretty much I can get everything to stick right to my card, and it gives it a nice shine. Another thing to add a little bit of extra oomph to my card is adding a little faux stitching, and I do that with my Score Pal and a little piercing tool, and this is by EK Success. EK Success makes a blue one that matches the Score Pal, but I can't find mine, so I'm using the one that I bought originally. And if you don't have a Score Pal or a scoring board, you can use just like a mouse pad and a ruler, and it will work just fine. But since I have the Score Pal, it's really handy to just get that, guide it down through one of the grooves. It works really well. Oops, my glitter's still wet, so I just stuck my finger in it. Even with a nail polish, I can still manage to smear that wet glitter. I'm going to be careful not to touch it while it dries. And you're not going to be able to see my lines until I go over it with a pen. I do this a lot because my sewing machine is upstairs. I tend to use my sewing machine for actual sewing and mending, so I don't use it on my cards very often. And it lives upstairs because I'm worried about moisture in my basement, and I don't want to risk ruining my sewing machine over being able to stitch on a few cards. So then I grab a little ruler. So organized. I have everything here practically that I need. I'm going to be careful not to stick my ruler in that wet glue, wet nail polish. And I line my ruler up on the bumps that I just made. It's really hard to see them. And I just drag my pen across. And I want it to kind of skip over the dots so it looks a little more realistic. There's really a lot going on in this background, but it's just going to give it a little extra something something. We like to have that in our cars, don't we, ladies? Little extra flair. I'm going to go behind the dress form on that one. That probably doesn't show in the video too well, but it really does make a nice difference when you're holding the card. It gives you a little extra texture and goodness of the crafty variety. Alright, now, like if I didn't have this background embossed, I could lightly just drag it across and that would be perfect, but I needed a little extra pressure on that to get through the embossed bumpy areas. Now I'm using just this little edge distresser. You could use the edge of a scissors or a razor blade to do this, but this is nice and safe. It's just I've had this for years too. It's a Heidi Swap distresser. I don't know if you can get these anymore, but I think Tim Holtz makes one. Or, you know, use the edge of your scissors. It's no big deal. You could probably use like a thread cutter too if you had one that you weren't terribly partial about it ever cutting thread again. You could probably use that to drag it across as well. And just shake off your little paper linty fuzz there. And let's see, what are we going to do next? Oh, I want a little shadow under my dress form to give it a little weight, like down here. So I'm going to use this very technical technique here, which is called pressing your finger into an ink pad and smudging the ink. And you can just kind of add it until you get it as dark as you want, and it will help ground the image. Sometimes if you're stamping and you feel like your image is just kind of floating, it doesn't feel realistic, go ahead and add a little shadow under it, because that's probably what it needs. And while I'm at it, I think I'll just add a little ink to the edges here. Why not? It's free, practically, you know, little ink. Doesn't cost you anything, doesn't cost you much, and it adds a whole lot of impact. Alright, so now that's starting to come together quite nicely, and I want to embellish a bit. So I can grab the thanks that I've made, and I can stick that down by putting a little bit of glue under each of the tails here. I'm using my Tombow Aqua Glue, and somebody had asked me in my glue video in the comments section what the difference is between this Tombow glue and the clear thing that I use a lot because I like to glue down die cuts, and the white bottle with the green cap. And I actually got a chance to use the white bottle kind. It's called the Tombow Multi Glue. I used that at a Stampin' Up! Party this week, and come to find out it is thicker and it holds embellishments a little bit better and it grabs a little bit quicker, so that's the difference. This is better for like fine die cut, like really lightweight stuff, and the other stuff would be like a more of a quick grab glue. This bottle is a little bit bigger too, but that's the difference. In case you were wondering, I did find out. Okay, so another technique that I like is to use old embossing powder that has kind of tarnished and gone bad, but actually using it because it looks like rust. And these gears were done that. I just took white cardstock and I die cut these and inked them in brown and inked them in gold, and then just dipped them in the old tarnished embossing powder, which, you know, is really gone bad, but it works for this technique. And I made little gears. And this teeny tiny one is actually a punch that I bought probably 10 years ago of a sun, but it worked good for a tiny gear because I needed something small. So I wanted to group it in threes, because when you group things in threes, it just looks better. So normally I would use my hot glue gun, but that's all the way across the other side of the room, and I don't have a convenient outlet here, so I'm going to use my glue and just make sure I let it dry really good before I go on. And I'm just going to glue down some of my little embellishments. This one though, I want to put a eyelet in, and I have these little hex head ones that, again, it was a really old purchase. I kind of bought before steampunk was all popular again. But I think if you buy things that you like, they're always going to be in style. You're always going to be able to use them. So, you know, if it's something that's true to your style that you like, you will get a chance to use it. Don't worry. And you know what? I think because this is kind of going to be hard to glue, I am going to actually put it in with my crocodile. This is worth every penny. If you don't have one, I highly recommend getting one because you will get a lot of use out of it. And I am just going to shove the back of the eyelet through, twist it so I have it just situated right. I might still have to go in and hot glue that because it doesn't feel like it wants to stay. And this really takes some muscle power here with this particular eyelet, so I'm really going to give it a good squeeze. and I've attached that. And then I'm just going to glue down that smaller one. I apologize if my hand's in the way, I can't really tell. Alright, and now I want to put a rhinestone there. And again, I'd use a glue dot or my hot glue gun, but those are on the other side of the room. So I'm going to use a rhinestone because when in doubt, add a rhinestone, as I always say. And I'm going to color it with a brown permanent marker just to take that, I want to color that with a brown marker too, because that's just a little too silver for this. It doesn't look, it looks too new. So I can make it look a little old. And a dab of glue here, which is going to take a little while to dry. And there we go. Now I think that the casters on my mannequin stand could use a little blinging up. So I am going to put some rhinestones there too. Because when in doubt, add a rhinestone, right? Right. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to do to this card. I think I've pretty much got it all set. I am going to add a little brown ink to these casters, hopefully. I'll try to do it now. I might need to wait for the glue to dry because I think they're going to slide all, yeah, they're going to slide all over the place on me. So I will add a little brown ink to that, but that's pretty much all there is to it. Here is the completed card that I stuck onto a pink card base. This one I'm going to put on an easel base, which is basically, you have your basic card, just like it would fold in half, basic card, but then you score between the fold and the end, and then you make your little easel area. And then I'm going to stick this on top, but I can't do that until it's all dried, and it will look something like that from the front, and I'll put some, you know, lovely lovelies here so that it will kind of prop it up, and then on the side it looks like that, just in case you don't know what an easel card is, you've been living under a rock or something. There you go. So there you have it, a very easy card with using a mixed bag of techniques and stamps from Lost Coast Designs. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy crafting!